There is no such thing as a dark day in regards to the Big A on MSG Plus. That's right, it's time for our latest edition of the National Racing Report. We do miss Richard Migliore, but on the flip side, we're happy Andy Serling's with us. We're glad you're with us as well. Jason Blewitt alongside Andy, and this is kind of the calm before the storm as we really ramp up in a big way for Thanksgiving and, of course, Holiday Fest at Aqueduct.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we load up our stakes this week. We have stakes Thursday, Friday, 4 on Saturday. Churchill Downs has plenty of stakes coming up this week. Same thing out west at Del Mar. So a lot of terrific racing coming up next weekend. This weekend, a little bit of a lull.
And I do like that we'll cover a bunch of different tracks that we rarely make stops to. Obviously, they put up a lot of money each and every November for the 2-year-olds out at Delta Downs, and we'll make a trip down there and a popular win Saturday for the DeSormo boys. And aside from that, we've got a race from Churchill Downs. We'll head down to Gulfstream Park West, formerly known as Calder, and we'll talk about the big Saturday stakes coming up, including the real firepower in the Grade 1 Cigar Mile. But let's begin at the Big A. In fact, back-to-back Aqueduct stakes, the first of which Saturday's $100,000 Artie Schiller on the turf. Very solid field for an ungraded 100K stake.
I'll say something else. The grounds crew, to keep this turf course in the kind of shape it's been in, we've been running 4 a day since we got here, which is a lot of races on one turf course. And we've had some rain, and we had plenty of rain here the other night, and this turf course is close to firm, even this late in November. I thought that there was some tepid riding in here, and it very much benefited the winner. I'm not sure why the horse I was in, the 8, is back in 7th at this point. It's a horse with speed, and it felt like a typical situation where everybody was fearing the 2 Plainview, but at least they created no separation. All of that worked very well for Skyflight, who won the race, because he was able to get that perfect inside tuck, Jason, and be close to the pace because they were going so slowly.
He did have the rail, and he's got good tactical speed, and was a horse that liked to get engaged and could be up in the first flight in his prior races. It does go back to Joel Rosario, though, I think, just making all the right moves and being the deciding factor with the horse, who really wanted the victory. As we continue on with the race and they get closer to the finish line, it is not a case that the runner-up, and it was a tough head loss for Aztec Brave, he wasn't slowing down. The winner went and got him.
No, I agree. Aztec Brave ran well in here, but he benefited from the fact that they went a 49 1/2. We saw races go with much faster paces. We saw a faster pace in our fifth race, which was a lower level race. Guys just aren't aggressive in these races, and I think the one only has tackle speed because they're going slowly.
Right.
And I just wonder if it brought everybody else to the race. Now, arguably, Aztec Brave, if he had to go faster, maybe he wouldn't have been as tenacious on the front end, and the one did come and get him. But I just think it sort of brought everybody together. It probably helped the one the slow pace and worked against horses like the 2 Plainview and even the 6 Aztec Brave, in my opinion.
And let's give a pop to both Reload, who's kind of splitting horses and finishing up close to the leaders in the Phipps Silks, the cherry cap and the black sleeves for Shug McGahee. And Lubash just never got on track whatsoever, being far back and getting that run that he wants, where he's able to settle, stay covered up. He just never really kicked on.
Well, he never got fully out in the clear, but he also got a very slow pace. And this is a race that was significantly hampered by the dynamics of the race. And Reload, at least John Velasquez, was able to get over because of the unaggressive ride in a horse like Vision Perfect, who actually may have more speed than him and could have been in front of him, but he didn't go. And at least Johnny got him a little in the race. He ran okay, Reload, actually, considering his recent form a little dubious. I just think pace made the race in here.
It's been a good few weeks on the turf, not to spend too much time for trainer Mark Cassie, who his dirt horses, I think, as a whole, have underperformed. But he's got a number of good-looking grass runners. Obviously, we just saw the winner of Saturday's Artie Schiller, but I know you and I are both fans of What a Wonderful World, a New York-bred 2-year-old by Tiz Wonderful.
Yeah, he got a nice ride, too, from Jose Lezcano earlier in the week. And I agree, Mark Cassie, it's a very dichotomous situation with Mark Cassie. His numbers in New York on the dirt are horrendous. He's 1 for 47 over the last 5 years with an ROI of under 10 cents. His numbers in the turf, though, are sensational, and it's evidenced by the fact that he won 2 Breeders' Cup races, and both of them were on the turf.
And maybe that falls back to the poly track, and the bulk of his string is based north of the border and training over the synthetic at Woodbine. Let's move on to the New York-bred 2-year-olds, and this was a case, and I think many people were looking at Saturday's pick 5 due to the presence of the horse with the orange cap. Sudden surprise as a pick 4, because on paper this horse was a complete layover. He worked pretty hard, though, to get it done.
Yeah, Actually, I think he was forced into a situation, John Velasquez realized, when other speeds weren't as aggressively ridden, where he had to be pretty much on the engine. And maybe that first quarter of 22, just under 22 and a fifth, took a little toll on him. It was, as you like to say, Jason, a workmanlike win.
But it goes back to this horse just being solid from day one. Broke his maiden, beat a big field, very sloppy track at a driving rainstorm first time out at Saratoga. Came back, won the funny side up there, beat a good field, beat Get Jets and the Bertram F. Bongard, and maybe a case of, at least as of now, a mile in the Sleepy Hollow on Showcase Day just being a bit too far for Sudden Surprise.
I agree. He's 4 for 5. He's a homebred from Giant Surprise. So not only is he a homebred for Michael Poli, but it's a sire that he's trying to stand, that he's done an excellent job with. At the end of the day, where's this horse made now? $250,000, $300,000 as a 2-year-old? He's precocious. Maybe he's not going to go on and do any bigger and better things. Maybe he will, but he's already had a pretty good career.
And Giant Surprise, I think, aptly named, standing his first season, or at least his first crop. He had only, during his racing career, he ran on a Saturday. Can't remember if it was the Whitney undercard. It was a big Saturday at the Spa. He won first time out, got hurt, was vanned off. They stood him at stud, and I'll tell you, it's been a pleasant surprise this year.
No question about it. A major overachiever, as you're saying already.
All right, let's move on. I think he'll be standing for more than 2,500 in 2016. Let's get you out to the action at the Twin Spires. I do like the turf races they have late in the fall season out there. We had covered the 3-year-old filly race a week ago on the show, and here is the stretch run of the Cardinal, where Paco Lopez, who's 3 wide in the black silks, dark silks, he just pulls away with the British bred. Button Down.
They always get a lot of shippers. They always get big fields for these races, and they're entertaining. Button Down is a horse I actually had seen run up in Canada when I was there back in September for Fox Sports 1. She had run well that day. Confident ride by Paco Lopez. Handled the turf course, always a question. And she was the best horse in the race.
Lady Foghorn, an Indiana-bred 20-to-1 outsider, finished second at a game second. Nobody else really involved. The pace kind of fell apart. Those horses kicked on, and none of the other closers really were heard from.
Well, a couple of horses that we had seen run in the Athenia big field back at Belmont. One of them was Viner Valkyrie, who actually finished 10th at 6-to-1. The other was Faux Flyer, who finished 8th at 7-to-2. And Faux Flyer was one, and we had talked about, that drew a very unlucky outside post on the inner turf course. Thought she would run better in this race. She never got involved. It's a sand-based course, and it can be tricky. And I just feel like this time of year, Jason, a lot of it is about who handles it and who doesn't. A mile and an eighth in 1:56.
No kidding. The chalk players, however, did get it right. 2-to-1 favoritism with this British-bred filly by Oasis Dream. She's a 4-year-old, and it appears, looking at her PPs, that she is a Juddmonte cast-off. They bred her, they had raced her, and I don't know, I'm assuming she was picked up privately by Greenwood Lodge Farm, and now she's with Josie Carroll, and she's been a good horse.
Josie Carroll's a good trainer. She does a very, very good job. That horse, Careless
Jewel,
who won the Alabama for Josie Carroll, and then she ran off in the Breeders' Cup. A very talented horse. And Josie's a dangerous trainer for sure.
All right, let's head out. Speaking of good trainers that have made a name for themselves, this has been some kind of 2015 for trainer Keith DeSormo. Maybe it began during the Breeders' Cup in 2014 with Texas Red, but I've been blown away by the operation this guy runs.
No question. In Saratoga, he performed well. You got to have the goods, but he gets it done. And Texas Red was one of them. Another was Exaggerator. Now, Exaggerator is now on the far outside the green. And this feels like a situation where Kent DeSormo thought, you know what? I'm about to get hung out very, very wide here if I don't make a decisive move. And you talked about it with me, Jason. It's at this point that he makes a decisive move not to get caught 5 wide.
No, he's able to kind of fly past that first flight of horses and get himself in sort of that outside stalking spot. He doesn't have to take any kickback, and he's able to at least tuck in to an extent. And that's what you want to see. You want to see a Hall of Fame rider in $1 million race riding a clear-cut 4-to-5 shot, make an aggressive, decisive move and ride him like he's the best horse in the race.
I agree, but this was a very quick pace, it seems to me, all things considered. And I'll tell you something, the horse who ends up finishing second, Sunny Ridge, is a talented horse, and we had seen him finish a good second in our Champagne, and we know he likes a wet track. And Rod Ortiz went down to ride him, and he's the one who's in a position at this point to take advantage of the pace, and you're going to see him make that move and ignore the names they have on the screen because they're just flat out wrong. But I'll tell you something, Sunny Ridge looked like, I don't know about you, Jason, when I watched this one live, I thought he was going right by, and Exaggerator was very game to hold him off.
So did the track announcer. Boy, oh boy, did he get a big call. And this goes back to Sunny Ridge debuting for a maiden 40 claiming tag at Monmouth Park over the summer. I like seeing Jason's service, and who knows where this horse stands in the entire 2-year-old picture at this point, but I like seeing Jason get a shot to develop a potential Derby starter.
I agree, and it's interesting. The connections were interviewed. I'm not sure if it was Dave Brenning or who did it for. I believe it was DRF.
Mary Rampolini, I think, was on track. Yep.
No. This was about a week or two ago.
Before, okay.
Talking about how, they'd like, obviously everybody wants to win the Derby. It'll be interesting to see how things change if the horse runs well in preps. But they say, we really want to win the Haskell. These are Jersey-based guys. But as you know, that Derby fever can change things. Nice effort by both horses. Exaggerator was best.
He was best, considering that early move. And you talked about the fact that he was on the engine and basically chasing a fast pace and never really was able to settle. One horse after another took a run at him, basically from the time that he made the lead.
Yeah, I mean, Exaggerator's probably not winning the Kentucky Derby. And, if somebody tells me what the odds are right now for horses to win, I'm going to tell you I might consider taking 2 to 3 times, whatever price any horse is. But he feels like he might be 50 to 1 to win the Derby. Yeah. It's not bad to be 2% to win the Kentucky Derby in the middle of November.
And getting the winner's share of $1 million purse, 10 Kentucky Derby points as well with the son of Curlin, and we hope to see Texas Red back and doing some good things in 2016 for a trainer who's just had a knack at picking up relatively cheap auction buys and getting good success out of them on the racetrack. How about the fillies, the 2-year-old fillies? They put up a lot of money in the Delta Princess, and we will pick this one up as they barrel around the far turn for the final time.
This is a race that has absolutely no significance whatsoever for any race that will ever matter going forward. The amazing thing is La Passionata, who was involved in the pace. It wasn't that fast. She was caught a little wide, lost a little position on the first turn. At the end of the day, she must not have liked the wet track because she galloped in the prep for this race, easily beating the horse Jet Black Magic, who defeats her here and upsets her here. The wet track may have taken a toll, and you say, well, this was a mile, that was 7 furlongs. That 7 furlongs was a Delta, so it was 2 turns. I don't think it was the mile. I think it had to be the wet track, while La Passionata at 1 to 5 takes a beating.
And one of the hometown horses getting the money, a Louisiana bred, following the Louisiana duo of Keith DeSormo and Kent DeSormo, the brothers, by the way, in the Delta Jackpot. What can you say? Brett Calhoun, the trainer, and this is a filly by one of your Travers long shots from a few years back in Hold Me Back.
Finished second to Quality Road, not to Quality Road,
Summerbird.
Summerbird, ahead of Quality Road, actually, in the Travers. And he's actually not a bad sire, and Brett Calhoun does a terrific job, but make no mistake, you can or cannot remember the name Jet Black Magic. Yeah. You may never hear it again.
Take the money and run. I felt a little bad as well for the folks out at Delta Downs. It poured on their hands down their biggest day of racing. Really the only card you've got the entire country paying attention, but glad everybody stayed safe and sound, and we're just getting warmed up. We are heading down and bring an umbrella for the second segment. We've got some turf coming up at Gulfstream Park West. Welcome back. The Big A, South Ozone Park, Queens, our second-floor clubhouse studios, tucked away right in the back corner. We're glad you're with us. It's Andy Serling, Jason Blewitt, and, of course, Private Zone, who on Saturday will look to join Congaree, the only repeat 2-time winner of the illustrious Cigar Mile.
It's his 3rd time, too. He's got a second-place finish at a big price and a win at a speed-favoring track. We've also got the low roller handicapping contest.
They were popular at the Spa. They were a hit 8 miles west of us or east of us at Belmont Park, and a good day to bring back the low roller contest. A $40 buy-in. It is Andy, it is Jason, and there's nothing like Holiday Fest. I know we work here, but it really is a fine send-off and a real sort of buzzworthy send-off to the major Grade 1 stakes on this circuit for 2015.
Couldn't agree more, and looking forward to talking about them with you at the end of the show.
Right. We still have a lot more ground to cover. Glad you've stayed with us on MSG Plus, and let's get it to the action in the Tropical Turf Handicap. Wow. You and I watched this race live in the studio, and I guess I was thinking last night, between us, maybe 60 years combined of going to the racetrack, I've never seen a turf course look the way this one does.
Yeah, they're kicking up water on that course. It is absolutely pouring. It's hard because it started raining right before the race. The turf is listed firm, obviously. You know what? It probably wasn't, it's not like it was soft.
Right.
Because it's raining right on top of it during the race, but it's obvious they're going to go slowly, and this was just a question of who handles them. But the amazing Lochte, one of the great purchases of all time for the Connections, Cross Saber Farms, as well as trainer Marcus Vitale, just keeps on rolling, and it seems like he can win rain, sleet, or snow.
Doesn't matter whatsoever, and he can take his show on the road. He's done well at Monmouth. He's done well at Gulfstream Park. Have no idea, and I should look up what they paid for this horse, who at one time was a Darley runner for Keir McLaughlin and privately purchased as a racing prospect, and the win Saturday put his career earnings to over $700,000. And I like the job Marcus Vitale does. And he shipped in to New York and has won some races.
Yeah, well, I think he also had some horses at Monmouth this summer, and he's a Grade 1 winner as well. A little bit different when they ran the other stake an hour earlier, the My Charmer.
No kidding. And Matthew Rispoli, by the way, the winning rider in the Lochte race. Here is Lady Lara. We've been fans of hers, and she gets a graded score over the co-favorite, Sandiva.
Yeah, no, Sandiva finishes third in a sort of blanket photo for third, but Lady Lara, much the best. And, you know, she ran well at the 2 turns. She actually run well at Gulfstream at 2 turns earlier in the year. She probably had a bit of a disappointing year. They thought maybe she could have been a Grade 1 former. I thought she could have been in a couple of races. She was a little unlucky in some spots, but ultimately Grade 2s, Grade 3s, but still a very nice horse.
Yeah, she's a soon-to-be 5-year-old Irish bred, and Jose Loscato went down to ride her in a perfect ride. Basically sat the pocket, angled out when they approached the quarter pole, got her off the hedge, and she kicked clear.
Well, I think what Jose did that was important, and we talked about it earlier, he recognized that it wasn't going to be a particularly fast pace, and he got her in the game because Lady Lara, as you know, is a horse that can linger way back in the field. She's 4th early. They're going slowly. This is a situation where Jose played a big role in the victory by this horse.
All right, slide 8-5 favorite. Todd Pletcher's second choice checked in third. That was not the case in Friday's first race for 2-year-olds here at the Big A. A short field. We lost a couple of key entrants at scratch time, but Alto Bell, from Belmont to Aqueduct, this is a completely different horse.
I don't know what this was, and I don't know if we'll ever see this again. This is a horse who ran in an off-the-turf race and was not an MTO for Todd Pletcher in her debut and got a 61 buyer in finishing a mediocre second. She came back in a regular scheduled dirt race and didn't run particularly well at all. And then suddenly in this race, and it wasn't an off-the-turf race, but 2 of the main contenders scratched. They must have known. She won by 18.5 lengths over the second choice. Actually, they were both 95 cents to the dollar. I don't know what this was. I didn't see a speed figure, but it might be in the 200s.
Yeah, right. Faster than Former Gold and Ghost Zapper combined. But here you go, a trap shot of Philly as John Velasquez stays busy. Kind of just showed her the stick there right-handed. And Todd Pletcher sending out this Philly, who again is by trap shot. And he's had an okay year as a freshman stallion.
Yeah, no, he actually has had a decent start, and we'll see how he does from there. And I imagine I'll probably see this one down in Florida when I'm at Gulfstream this winter. And if she continues to run like this, we'll see her in stakes.
And it looked like a case of Todd Pletcher taking both 2-year-old bookend races on the Friday card in the Sun at the Big A. Alto Bell by nearly 20. And the fans, I think, had you taken a poll before Friday's 9th, would have said, well, the over-under with the hot favorite Rally Cry, who's 1-5 and sitting third right now in the red cap, at least 5 lengths.
Yeah, he had an absolutely perfect trip, whereas the horse on the inside, Luna De Loco and John Velasquez, had to be used hard to keep that position on the inside. Rally Cry looked to get the perfect trip and roll by him. He was denied, and he was caught for second by I want to call him Little Honor Code, the horse Morse Code, who's a half to Honor Code, a Tappet. But you see, he's not a gray, so maybe he'll really have more of that dam, and that'll be a good thing. It's not a bad thing to have Tappet as well, but Rally Cry, a big disappointment. But I tell you, Luna De Loco ran very well.
Yeah, there's a horse that never had a breather, bide hard inside, was even in a little tight approaching the far turn run, but stayed busy, and John Velasquez kept him in a very good rhythm. And Brad Kelly's gold and black Calumet Farm Silks, first horse we've seen with Steve Asmussen, the winning trainer, as Toby Sheets is alongside.
I think we'll see this one again in some good races. You know, we talk about this a lot during the year. We even talk about it in Saratoga, Belmont, that it seems like sometimes you see some of the stronger some of the 2-year-olds run at Aqueduct, especially on the main track. There are some very good races, one-turn mile races, and I think we've seen this the case. This is going to turn out to be a strong race because Morse Code came running like a Little Honor Code, and he may be a talented horse. This is a dam. I think this is her 4th full. 2 of them are graded stake winners, including Honor Code. This one will be in stakes in the future.
Yeah, no kidding. A win-win for Shug all around there with the debut of Morse Code, second best in Friday's 9th. Let's wrap up the 2-year-old action on the show, and we can dive right into our Cigar Mile Day preview. Race number 6 on Saturday, and boy, it didn't matter in the end, and maybe that was the silver lining, but at the time, this was a tough beat for you and I. You would like the runner-up for Tim Hills at around 6-7-1, but it's the Joe Orsino trained Lazarus Project, the one who would not beat an eye.
Yeah, I would keep an eye on the horse rallying on the rail into 5th right now. I think finishes 4th. That's the 7 horse for Barclay Tagg. Actually does run 5th, I believe. Thought that horse made a little run. I also think Musical Comedy, who finished 6th, came from way back. And I thought the track might have changed a little bit midway in the card and helped speed horses. And we saw an upset in the next race that may have played a role in that. Obviously, the 2 was best in here, Malibu Action, because he took all the heat from a long shot who finished well back in the pack, while the one who won at Lazarus Project was able to sit a perfect trip and got an excellent ride by Elvis Trujillo, who I think has a chance of a very good winner. He keeps him in tight, but he's riding legal, and that's a very good riding tactic overall. It's interesting. All these maidens, some well-bred-looking horses, expensive horses. Tony Dutro's horse a disappointment in here. It was a maiden claimer, second-time starter for Joe Orsino.
Yeah,
got
picked
the
up,
money.
I think, at auction for $40,000. Caught by a King's Bishop winner, Indiscreetly Mine, as Elvis gets back to the winner's circle here, knocking many pick 6 and late pick 4 tickets out in the process. Truth be told, though, we did have that one-day carryover into Sunday's card. Check NYRA.com. Maybe we're playing for a 2-day carryover this coming Wednesday as Private Zone looks for another Cigar Mile win when we come back. Holiday Fest, Thanksgiving Day this Thursday. It all begins November 26th at the Big A, 11:50 a.m. That first race post. Gates open up here at Aqueduct at 10:30 a.m. We want you upstairs. We'll feast on the racing. We'll get that Thanksgiving buffet up in Equestris. And Andy Serling and I will be doing the Thursday edition of Talking Horses, I think at 10:45. That sounds about right.
I think it's 10:45 on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. We have an 11:50 post all 3 days.
All right, and certainly a lot of ground to cover, a lot of things to talk about in regards to the entire Holiday Fest program, but Private Zone in the Grade 1 Cigar Mile is the starting point. There's this multiple Grade 1 winner who actually aborted his own workout Saturday morning at Palm Meadows. He pulled himself up in the middle of the breeze down there for Brian Lynch. We'll be coming back to the Big Apple for another Grade 1 score.
And you say Brian Lynch, it's important to point that out because Brian Lynch is the new trainer for Private Zone. I'm not even sure who was training him as we take a look at him winning last year's Cigar Mile. I know he had Jorge Navarro. I'm not sure he was the trainer at this point. Keep in mind, and he's run very well in 2 Cigar Miles because he was second to Flat Out at 25-1 the year before. This was as extreme a gold rail as we have had at Aqueduct, maybe in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And it significantly helped Private Zone, but it also hurt some of his competition. So while he's a terrific horse, and listen, his third in the Met Mile this year was a sensational effort when you consider the pace and the way the race collapsed. So even on a fair racetrack, I think he has to be considered the horse to beat. But his last year's win is a little dressed up.
And he'll come in off the Breeders' Cup Sprint, was so good, and a very stubborn second behind Run Happy. And that brings up an intriguing point, or at least certainly a handicapping factor worth mentioning. You've got to encounter horses during Holiday Fest who are coming back off the Breeders' Cup, and that is not an easy thing to do for any horse.
It's not, except it doesn't seem to matter for Private Zone, because Private Zone is now running 2 consecutive Cigar Miles, and he's running the Breeders' Cup prior to that. So he showed no rust coming out of the Breeders' Cup. The only thing I would say is that this year was the best performance he had in the Breeders' Cup. Maybe that bodes well, maybe it doesn't, but I don't know about Private Zone. He just seems to show up every time.
He is one good gelding, my favorite horse in training, and the connections, including Renee Douglas. He's been a good story on that front, and they have done one fantastic job with the horse who began in Panama. Here's a horse that began his career, well, running at Aqueduct a few falls back in Tonalist, who's got a Belmont Stakes and 2 Gold Cups to his credit. How do you think he'll run trying the one-turn mile?
I think he'll run very well in here. If you look back at his Westchester, he started the year at a mile in the Westchester. It was one of the better races he ran all year. And then the Met Mile, he had real trouble in there, and he wasn't going to beat Honor Code, but if he didn't have trouble at the start and he wasn't rushed aggressively after that, he would have been a lot closer to the mighty Honor Code. This is a very, very good horse. I'm going to give him a pass for his Breeders' Cup. Didn't run at all. The other thing is Christophe Clemence-Barnes come alive. He went into a little bit of a slump at the wrong time for him, but things are going well for him now, and I think Tonalist will run well. Christophe is not running Tonalist and or Red Vine unless he believes they're doing well.
And both horses, in fact, from the Clement barn are dropping out of the Breeders' Cup, as Red Vine was third behind the impressive Liam's Map, and of course Lee in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And this is a horse who really springboarded himself into recognition with a big main track win during the Big A meet this past spring.
I agree, and it's great to see these horses continue to race. He had actually won his first dirt race in November, but you're right. I thought, that was an off-the-turf race. I remember doing this proud with you. I said, he won an off-the-turf race and blah, 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 blah. He's not going to beat these real dirt horses. Well, that was one of my many horrendous opinions, because because he didn't just beat them, he destroyed them, Jason.
And a race that came up fast, a triple-digit buyer, and Christoph did well picking out the right spots. Ducked is the wrong word, but didn't face perhaps some of the best handicap horses in division. Ran the horse a few times over the summer down in Jersey. And I'm a fan of Red Vine, man. You know he likes the main, and a one-turn mile is perfect.
I absolutely agree. And I think if the speed of Private Zone can't hold up, this horse, Red Vine, has a very good chance to make his presence felt in there.
How about the 2-year-olds and maybe a case of Kieran McLaughlin in some sort of kooky racetrack poetic justice way being owed a Remsen off the tough loss with the Cairo Prince to Honor Code. Couple falls back. Mohayman, though, son of Tappet, purchased for over $2 million. He's been the goods so far.
Well, it's funny because it's also Frosted, who runs for the same silks that was second last year, and he was hurt because he chased 3 wide against the Gold Rail, and he lost to a horse that stayed on the Gold Rail the whole way. So it's interesting you point that out. I wouldn't remember 2 years ago, and this is the 3rd year in a row he's trying it, and he'll have the favorite. And this goes back to what we were talking about, horses that debuted later in their careers, because Mohayman had that impressive win in his debut. I thought his national was much more impressive. Good horses he beat, too, in both Sail Ahoy and Flexibility.
And a quick pop to Flexibility and Sail Ahoy. Flexibility, New York bred by Bluegrass Cat for Chad Brown. And Sail Ahoy, your typical Phipps homebred for Shug, who looks like he'll really relish the 2 turns and 9 furlongs.
Well, it's actually interesting, too, and we bring back the Frosted situation last year. He lost to a horse owned by Klarovich and Bill Lawrence, trained by Chad Brown, who rode the rail last year. They have Flexibility as well. Now, that horse wasn't a New York bred, but Sail Ahoy also looks like a typical kind of Shug horse that's coming along slowly. He'll appreciate more ground. All 3 of these horses are good horses.
And let's check out Gift Box and Matt King Cole. And boy, we ended Gold Cup Day, and I get the weather was a bit trying at times, but we had Tonalist in his repeat Gold Cup victory, and the day capped by Gift Box and Matt King Cole, who ran extraordinarily well in a race that came up super fast.
I believe it got a speed figure the same as the Champagne or a point faster. And if this had been the Champagne, people would have been still talking about what a great stretch run it was. And keep in mind that Matt King Cole, who finished 2nd here, came back on a dry track and beat the horse for Chad Brown, who finished 3rd as a maiden portfolio manager, beat him on a dry track and beat him like a drum and got a 96 buyer on a fast track. Boy, do I hope that both these horses come back. I know that Gift Box is pointing. Matt King Cole is certainly a probable for the race. These are terrific horses, and this is a race you should be running in it, because who cares if you finish 4th in here? Nobody should be worried about unbeaten records. These are good horses, and a race like the Remsen will only do them good going forward.
And it'll do us a lot of good throughout the week here at Aqueduct. We hope you join us 11:50 a.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Back at it this Wednesday with the first race post at 12:20. We'll have the entire Holiday Fest recap for you right here on the Racing Report next time on MSG+.